Can you hear the waves? I can. Okay, so let's do a time check. How about 1 more minute as you're joining us? Thank you so much for being here with us for Canvas 101. We invite you to put your name and your college and your email address in that chat function. The chat window is accessible on some computers. You're going to see that bar across the top of your screen where you can engage with the chat on the right. For some of you, you're going to see that bar on the bottom of your screen where you can engage with the chat. Either way, please get that information in there for us so that we can connect with you and continue to connect with you.
Nicole, can you hear me? This is Neenu Mathur.
I can.
Okay. Can you see my information? Neenu Mathur, CSM.
Let's check. I'm going to ask my amazing co-pilots, Keelan and Devin, if they can see it in the chat.
I'm looking now. I don't see your name yet. No.
Did you type it into the chat?
I did.
And press enter.
Oh, I didn't press enter, of course.
Oh,
That's
perfect.
the secret.
Yep. While you're there in the chat, if you click on where it says there are 3 dots in the right-hand corner for everyone, you can click on Save Chat at the end of this session, and that will save all the links and everything in there so that you have that transcript of for now, because we have a lot of videos to upload and work with, so we want to make sure that you have immediate information. So that's how you control that.
And I'd also like to say really quickly, forgive me, Nick, if you're going to say this, but I will be managing the group chat. And so if you have questions that are coming up, please put them in there when they come up. If they are applicable to what we're talking about now, and I feel like you can't really move forward with our discussion today, I'll bring it up. Otherwise, we have a dedicated Q&A portion of this later on. And so in order for this to be very structured and to not mess with other people's flow and Nick's flow while she's presenting all this wonderful stuff, we will have a very particular Q&A period. So please put those in there. I won't be saying, I received your message, I received your question, because they're coming in all the time, but just know that I am receiving it and I am taking it down.
Amazing. Thank you, Keelan. Or thank you, Keelan. Thank you, Devin.
You're welcome.
Thank you also, Keelan.
Just for being here.
You're always doing more than just being here, right?
That is the truth. That is the truth.
Yes, yes. This power trio is going to move y'all through Canvas 101 and wrap you with lots of socially appropriate virtual hugs as we work through this transition together. So, without further ado, let's do a little work together. So again, thank you so much for taking the time. Your time is incredibly precious right now. You have so much to do, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us and for us to be able to learn in community together and navigate this difficult and uncertain time, but to give ourselves permission to be learners, even in a time of transition, because that's going to help anchor us and certainly anchor our students as we move forward. So I just want to share the objectives that really guide our whole series. So all the different types of topics that we might be talking about in this 3CSN Wayfinding series, our central goals are to create a sense of community in online environments in order to support student engagement and retention. And so in many ways, we are hoping through what we're doing here to help model some practices that you can then take forward when you're working with students, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's supporting them as in counseling or learning assistance remotely. We also want to be learning together in order to support our professional identities, which are in a moment of transition right now as we work in this online environment. And then to provide our network, right, one another with opportunities to dialogue, share, build and strengthen knowledge, and engage in that productive struggle in community, right? So struggle is just where we feel like we're at ends and we're not getting anywhere. Productive struggle is where we're encountering challenge, but we feel like as long as we are taking on that challenge with both the resources and the capacity of our community to work with us, that we can get there, right? That we're rowing the boat. We will get there together, that productive struggle. 3CSN really thinks about community and productive struggle as elements that move us towards transformation, and that's evidenced in our theory of change, right? 3CSN says if we provide training on networking and we use action research, community college professionals will transform their environments and identities to create communities of practice that will produce powerful learning. So right now, externally, there has been a moment of transformation that we must now transform alongside, right? And 3CSN says, we can do this, we're gonna come alongside and be learners together, and that will help us to be successful. I'm gonna pause us for 1 second because it's gonna get really loud in my house. So take a moment to drink your tea. I'm gonna close my door and I'll be right back. Hold on 1 second.
Thank you, Nick. As Nick is closing her door and she oh wow, she like disappeared into the Hawaiian Ocean there. Again, make sure that you put your name, email, and
wow,
into the chat.
it's so cool.
And again, we will be managing all of the questions in the chat box. So as things arise, please make sure that you put those questions in there. Thank you so much. All right, she's back.
I'm back.
Okay.
Something much cuter, but also much louder than Hawaii was just going to be all up into our webinar. And so
Oh my gosh.
Gotta say, not yet, buddy. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this session and what we're going to be doing in particular in Canvas 101. So our learning goals for this session is to learn and practice using Canvas tools to meet teaching, learning, and participation goals online. And this is Canvas 101. So we're going to approach from a place of what can we do from a real basic level to get you where you need to be, recognizing that you can always level up and do more later when you feel ready, right? And then our other learning goal is just to collaborate and support one another as learners, right? In terms of how we divide our time, we're going to take about 25 to 30 minutes on the front end, where I model different tools and ways that you can engage with your students using Canvas. Again, coming back to what Devin said, inviting you to either log your questions in the chat or note them on a piece of notebook paper or a digital document on your own desktop with a recognition that we have dedicated time toward the end of our session for questions and answers, and that we do hold that time. So that will be there for you. If you have a technical challenge or something like that where you're like, gosh, nope, I'm gonna lose out if I don't get this answered right now, make sure to send that forward to Devin, and she can either interrupt me or chat with you to help clarify something if needed. Before we get into our learning, I want to take just a couple minutes to invite us to think about what do we need in order to be able to effectively learn online together today. And so I want us to think about our norms or our community agreements. And this is a moment where we pause to think about, like, how does effective collaborative online learning happen? What ingredients are necessary for this to be a successful learning experience for you? We've had the benefit of a week of these webinars now, almost half a week of these webinars so far. So as a group of coordinators, we brainstormed a few community agreements that help us learn together well. And then we have had the benefit of increasing that list through feedback from all of you in webinars last week. To be respectful to those who might be listening in only, have audio only options, I'm gonna read what's on our screen. And as I'm reading, I'm gonna invite you to think, what's missing? What additional community agreements or norms or ways of working together might we need to add to this list to be an effective learning group today? So what we have so far is reminders and encouragements to raise your hand digitally or in the chat as a way to signal your question. To assume best intentions with large group online dialogue, right? Lots of folks, lots going on. It's not as free-flowing and easy as it would be if we were in a room together, right? So just assuming those best intentions. I'm going to do my best to annotate or describe my actions to be respectful to those with limited viewing ability or audio only options, right? I don't want to assume that you can see the moves I'm making on the screen. So I'm going to do my best to annotate those. It's useful for us to keep in mind that we're all learners right now and we're doing our best, right? Be kind to yourself. It's a whole new ballgame, and we're doing what we can, right? It's okay to ask clarifying questions. If something seems second nature, a move that I'm making seems second nature, but you're like, wait, I didn't quite get there. Give yourself permission to ask those clarifying questions. Just like our students, if you have it, probably 10 other people have it too. Right? Keep things simple for yourself and for your students. As we work through these new ideas or new approaches, keeping that idea of simple at the center is really valuable. And remember to be kind to yourself and to your students, right? That kindness goes a long way right now into helping us all get there. With those in mind, what's missing? What do we need to add? If you've got anything you want to add, please put it in the chat. And then Devin can send it to me and I can add it to our list.
Minu, I wanted to let you know I just sent you a message in chat with information on how to log in.
I'll give us about 30 more seconds, and then I'll check in with Devin to see if there's anything we should add. How are we looking there, Copilot?
We are good. Nothing so far. I think everyone is happy with what we shared.
All right. Man, the last session, I went right back to the spot and I didn't have to click it. And today, and this, nope, had to go through, clickety click. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling. So as you're thinking about learning objectives for this particular session, a useful way of framing what we're going to do together is that Canvas can do a lot, right? There's many options of what you could do. In order to minimize the cognitive overload of trying to take all that on at once, I would highly suggest to you that you really think about the moves that you need to make in Canvas as really fulfilling one of three goals, right? That you want to guide, right? Guide students to information, then guide them through information on your course. That you want to connect, right? You want to create those connections with your students, but you also want to help your students connect with your course content. And that Canvas can help you to observe and evaluate student learning. Like if you do those three things, everything else is an addition. So guide, connect, observe, and evaluate student learning. That's all that's really necessary in order to be able to use Canvas as that learning management system for your courses for the rest of the semester. Two additional quick reminders. Although our students appear to be quite technologically savvy, right? They have lots of devices and lots of acronyms. They are more nervous than we are about what's coming in terms of having to learn online. My own experience teaching online for a number of years is that the skills that students have in the outside world related to using digital devices do not immediately translate into an ability to be literate in how to use a Canvas, right? So they know that, they're pretty nervous. They have varied levels of skill coming in with this, and they have varied levels of access, bandwidth, and other things, right? So what that really should encourage you to think about is that for you and them, simple is good and clear is really important, right? Much more than any bells and whistles. Simple and clear, it's a good way to be. If we're thinking with that first goal of guiding, before we even start thinking about what we want to do in Canvas, just a shout out to guide students to your Canvas course, right? If you've not been using Canvas to communicate with your students since the beginning of the semester, you need to help build that bridge from whatever communication method you have been using digitally to welcome them into that Canvas environment, right? So you could use your campus email or whatever communication you've been using up until this point to welcome them, kind of assuage some of their concerns, let them know that you're there, and then invite them into your Canvas course. You can also link to your college's webpage. There's probably somewhere on your campus's webpage that's dedicated for online learning. It's probably a page that has things like, how do I log into Canvas for the first time, etc. You could drop that link into your email that invites students into your class as a way to help them troubleshoot that transition, right? And then just those individual reach outs on email to make sure folks are able to log in, right? You can check the activity to see who's in your Canvas course. And if you see that you have students on your roster, but they haven't accessed your Canvas course, you can reach out individually. Touch them on the shoulder, say, I see you, how you doing? How can I help? Right, to get them in. Once they're in, right, you might be thinking, okay, how do I, this is a big open blank workspace. How do I guide students through this course, right? How do I organize my content online within this class? And then how do students find their assignments? So the answer to both of those questions is to create something in Canvas called a module. So Canvas calls this, what I would say is a container, modules, right? So modules are the function in Canvas that organizes content. Just think about it like a big empty box that you make. It's a container. It can hold anything you want it to, right? It could contain a week's worth of class content. It could contain a unit of class content. It could contain a whole category of stuff in your class, right? Like maybe you organize it by all your readings are in one module and all your quizzes are in another module, right? So you can label those containers or organize those containers any way you want. They're really just a place that creates a border around a certain portion of content, okay? Another benefit of modules is that they can be built and published, and I'll show you what published means in just a minute, but they can be built and published in advance by you, so you can work ahead, but you can restrict when students can access them. So that way, if you want to build out, you know, a couple different units or 5 or 6 weeks, you can do that, but still control the gate on whether or not students can access that information, just like if you were going to class and saying, I'm not going to bring them that reading until next week. I know that I want them to read that, but I don't want them to read it now. I want them to have it in a couple weeks. Our learning isn't ready for that just yet. So you can still create those barriers to control the flow of information or interaction that your students do. And modules will show you how to do that. So let's go take a tour and see what these look like. If you would like to do this alongside me in your own Canvas course, you're welcome to, or if you just want to be an observer, it's a great place. You can always go back and play in your own Canvas course later. So this is a little bit like a baking show in that this is not my real Canvas class, right? I want to protect my students' information and not have that out here everywhere. And so what I'm working in right now is something called a sandbox. And that's this sort of personal design room that I have. Some of you, I don't want to say all of you because it really depends on what your distance education group has at your college, but some of you should have access to a sandbox, a personal sandbox that sits alongside your published courses where you can practice, play with things, get stuff where you want, and then move it over into a live course. For our purposes, it just gives us a great place where I can demo stuff for you and let you see what that would look like. So if you're coming into Canvas for the first time to look into your class, it's not going to have all this stuff in it, right? The first time that you access your Canvas course, you're going to see on the left a bunch of different ways in which you engage with Canvas, right? Different types of content that you can build or interfaces that you can work with. And then on the right, you're going to have some buttons over here and some reminders. But if this is your first time in, I wouldn't start by meandering through either one of those spaces. I would make life really easy on yourself because you're going to see this bar across the top and there's a blue button with a plus that says module. You can't really take folks anywhere until you've built a module to guide them. So that's the easiest first step for you to take when you're building that online course as well. So you can click on this button that says module. Canvas will give you a pop-up. and then it's going to invite you to name that module. So let's say this time I want to organize this by weeks, okay? But because I worry that I'm not sure exactly what my timing is going to be, I'm not going to title it like week 10. I'm going to title it module A and then put a date range in here, okay? Because I can always change that date range, but that way I don't have to change the module just by the date if something gets wonky, right? So I could just call it module A, and then I could know that my students are going to access this between March 30th and April 6th or something like that, right? So I'm creating my title here. Beneath my title for that module is where Canvas is going to give me that option where it says, hey, do you want to lock this? I'll have an opportunity to lock it later as well. But if I know that I don't want students to access that until either I'm done building it or it's the right time in our flow of information, I can click on this box that says lock. And then I can right click on the calendar underneath and Canvas says, when do you want it to unlock? And this is where I can say, I really don't want anybody to be able to get into this until April 11th. So in order to not have this look wonky, let's say that I actually mean that module A is going to happen between April 12th and April, look at me trying to add numbers in my head while I do this. April 12th and April 19th. That's 7 days. There we go. Canvas gives you more options than I think are really useful at this point, right? At the bottom of this pop-up box, it's asking you if you want to add a prerequisite. Having taught for multiple semesters online, what I would say is prerequisites are a great idea in theory and a really challenging idea in practice. It creates a bunch of if-then statements where students have to complete certain things before they can move forward. I would invite you to leave that as an adventure you could take on in a future semester should you want to. And I would not suggest going on that adventure right now. The locking works great. It's enough for you to be able to control those levies. So I've added this module, right? I clicked that save, but I don't immediately see it if I've got other content because anytime I add a new module, it's going to drop at the bottom of my workspace. So I just need to scroll to the bottom of that workspace, come over to the 8 dots on the left and move it where I want to move it. And I can move it in between existing modules. I can rearrange them at any time. I just drag it and click it. So here's my new module. Another thing to notice here is that Canvas has given me this module, this container. There's nothing in it right now, right? But the container is here. Canvas is also telling me by giving me this circle with a slash mark through on the right that I can see this as the developer, but it's not visible to anyone else yet because it is not quote unquote in Canvas language published, okay? If I hover over that circle, Canvas is going to say, hey, when you click this, it publishes this content, which means it's visible. To be really clear, there is a difference between something being visible and being accessible, okay? If I created that lock function, which says this will not open until April 11th, and I've got this, language underneath this module that tells me this module will not open until April 11th, what that means is my students can see that a module exists. Now that I have published it, they can see that there is something there, there's a container there, but they will not be able to enter or engage with that container till whatever date it is that I've locked that to. So if you're trying to double check and see like, what can my students see? The green button with the check mark tells you it's published, they can see it. The date or lack of a date underneath tells you whether they can interact with it or not. I'm going to pause and let you process that for a second. We now have a module. Bring us back up to our PowerPoint. My desktop is being slightly grumpy with me today and not letting me easily access my PowerPoint. There it goes. Okay. Come on there, PowerPoint. There we go. So once again, a few examples of how you might use modules. You can organize them by the date or the week. I personally, in my classes, organize them by letter. That way, if I screw something up, I can always change. I can keep the letters, keep the organization, and just change the dates. You can organize modules by units, and you can organize modules by content type. These are the primary ways in which folks create that guidance or division of information within their courses. So that's a little bit about how to guide students. Let's talk a little bit now about how to connect students, right? First and foremost, I want to say that there's no way for me to do two things at once. And I think that they're both equally important. I think it's really important to connect with your students to create a sense of community. I also think it's really important to connect your students to content. I can only talk about one at a time. So I'm going to default here to talking about connecting with content first. But keep in mind or hold in your mind that I would argue that it is equally important to create opportunities for your students to connect with you and to connect with each other. And we'll show you how to do that in a minute. So some questions you might have about helping your students to access the learning content for their course, right? How do I help my students connect to our course content or readings? How do I move my assignment sheets and handouts online, right? If I've been handing stuff to people in class every day or once a week, packets, whatever that might be, like how do I transition that to an online environment? And then if I'm going to be on the web, how might I utilize or integrate those web tools or resources alongside maybe my textbook content or my required reading to create a more interactive experience for my students? Canvas's answer to all of these questions is to create something called content pages, and then to add content to those content pages. In my opinion, I think page is a really crummy name for this function in Canvas, right? Page makes you think about something that's sort of flat and has a single function and has a sort of a finite space, right? You can only do so much with it. Instead, let's imagine that, that you're thinking about this page, right, this space, as like a manila folder that you can both fill with stuff and write on the front of it, right? Pages can hold anything that you want them to. You can directly write on them, but you can also embed content in them, right? And so that's the magic of a page. And you can put just about anything you want on a page. You could upload a set of readings you want your students to engage with. And then next to that set of readings that you uploaded, you could type instructions for what you want them to do with it. You could upload handouts. You could embed YouTube videos that go along with that content that maybe students are reading about. You could put reminders on due dates or connect to assignments that live in other spaces in Canvas. You could write some overview content for a module. Maybe this is Unit 2 and you want to make a page that just explains sort of, here's the big ideas we're going to be engaging with in Unit 2, the same way you would in class, where you come in and you introduce a new topic, right? You can embed, upload your PowerPoints or lecture videos for students to connect with. You can link to assignment drop boxes. So you could literally have like, here's the readings I want you to read, open those. Here's some things to think about, and here's a PowerPoint about those readings. And here's the Dropbox where you upload your homework. All of that could be on the same page together. And I would encourage you to think about potentially putting all those things on the same page together, because the more opportunities that you can keep students in the same place to get the thing done that you want to do, the better. The less they're going out and about clicking in multiple places, the better. Keep them in one spot. It works really well. So let's take a look at how you might build a page and put some stuff on it. We're going back to our baking show. Here we are. Bring this up a little bit and hopefully, let's see if my computer will let that stay there this time. Be kind to me, computer. Work with me. Here we go. Okay. We've got this module. It's a container. There's nothing in it right now, right? And so this is the moment where I tell Canvas what I want to live in that container. So given our discussion about connecting students to their resources and their learning, right? I'm going to hit this plus on the right-hand side of the module. And Canvas defaults to asking me if what I want to add to that module is an assignment. Because at the end of the day, an online learning management system is about creating places where students demonstrate their learning, and then you give them grades and feedback for them. So it defaults to asking about assignments. But if you come to this triangle drop down, you can change it to something that says page. If you've already built some pages in Canvas, it'll give you those options, right? It's going to say like, hey, do you want to include this page that you've already built somewhere else? Or do you want a new page? In this case, we're going to build a new page. So I'm choosing new page, and then it encourages me to come down here and name that new page. So let's call this Module A, Readings and Assignments. And I'm going to click add. And now as you look on our Canvas course here, you'll see that we have the container, the big container is the module, and then living now within that module is this content page. Now the page doesn't have anything on it yet, but we're going to take care of that. So in order to add stuff to your page, you're going to hover over the title, click it, and Canvas will open up that editing space for you to say, what do you want to do with this page? And right now, the only thing that lives on this page is the title. But if I come to the right, I'm given two buttons. One, I'm given that kind reminder by Canvas that as the developer, I can see this, but it is not yet published, so nobody else can see it. Just a reminder for me to come back. And I also have this button that says edit. So I can click on that edit button. And now I'm going to have this design space where it opens up all these bells and whistles and functions, but deep breathing. We don't have to engage with all those bells and whistles and functions. We can do a few things and be good to go. So this is an interactive space where you can upload stuff, link to stuff, and directly type in. So I typically start a page by giving a couple sentences so that it orients students to like, what the heck are they looking at, right? So I might put on here, right? This page is our homeroom for everything connected to Module A. Please watch the PowerPoint and the YouTube video below, as well as completing the readings by, I'm trying to remember, what were our fake dates for this? Let's say like by April 15 or something like that, right? As you can see in real time, when I misspell something, Canvas will help me to be able to correct my spelling. There we go. So I've created a couple sentences to tell students like, hey, welcome. Here's what you should do with this piece of interactive material that I'm giving you. And then I can start populating that piece of interactive material. So I can upload a reading, right? Maybe I've told them, please go with the readings, the PowerPoints. If I want to do that, I come over to my right. I'm going to click on this middle tab. There's links, files, and images. I'm going to click on the middle tab that says files. And then if it's a file I've already uploaded to this course in Canvas, I'll see it as an option. But if I haven't uploaded it yet, I can come right down here to the plus and upload a new file. And then just like any other time I'm uploading a file, I'm going to get this box that says choose a file. And then it's going to bring me over to my course, or to my, excuse me, to my desktop. And then I can choose where I want to be, put in a file, choose open. And then I'm going to see it sitting down here pending ready to go, right? I can see the title of that document right next to that choose file button. And then I've got this button down here that says upload. And so this is the moment where I can check where my cursor is to make sure location wise it's where I want it in this page. And I want it right there, perfect. So then I'm gonna hit upload. And I'll know it works when Canvas gives me this blue link looking situation that tells me, look, your file's uploaded, right? I'm gonna hit enter with my cursor, and now I can add more stuff to this page. Right, so I've uploaded that file, whatever it might be, a reading, an assignment, etc. And then I could do some other stuff here, right? I could type more. I could link to a URL. So if there's a If there's a website that I want to go to, for example, let's say that I'm going to go to TED.com, just a quick shout out. If you want to know more about how to use TED Ed or TED.com in your classes, we have sessions coming up on that, right? So I could come to TED and I could look up a web video that feels useful for my content or engaging for my students. I could click on that video. And then just like any other web content, right? If I'm on the World Wide Web, I could probably come up and highlight that URL, but TED makes it really easy on me and gives me the share button. I can click on that share button. I can copy the link. I can carry that link back with me to my page that I'm making. Up at the top in this like stream of all these tools, I'm going to see one that looks like a chain and it says link to URL. I'm going to click it. It's going to give me a box. I'm going to Control V or right click to paste into that box. And then I'm going to click insert link. And Canvas is going to show me that it's there by the blue word that says link. So then I always add a sentence that follows this for accessibility purposes, right? So I'm going to say like link, click here to watch the TED.com video on fear and connecting. Okay, so now we know what that is. So I've uploaded a document. I've linked to a web video. I could upload a PowerPoint the same way as uploading a document, right? So there's so many choices of what I could do on this page. I could, once I've built some assignments, link to an assignment here. So this page just becomes a place that continues to be interactive and holds a perimeter around content that's associated with one another. So then I'm going to hit save. I can always come back and edit my page. I don't have to make all my decisions about what I want. As I build it, I can put in what I have and then come back and add more. And this is that moment where Canvas reminds me, only you can see this right now, Nicole, right? Your students can see that there's a module, but they don't even know that you have a content page underneath until you choose the button on the right with the check mark that turns green that says publish. Now my students can see that there is a content page that says Module A readings and assignments, but because I've got this text that reminds me it will not unlock until April 11th, I know that they can see it, but they can't get in there yet. And that helps me to control that flow with what I have. I'm going to take a second for you to process that information, take us back to our PowerPoint. We'll see how we're doing. How are we doing? Doing all right?
Yeah, thumbs up.
Fantastic, fantastic, nice, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so we've guided them in our course by creating those modules to organize how they encounter information, right? We have connected them with course content, right? So far, we're functioning like a pretty well-running correspondence course, which is not exactly what we want, right? A correspondence course is fine, but we want to have those interactions between us and our students and between our students and each other, right? That's what makes a rich learning environment. So we need that next level of connection, which is creating a sense of community in the classroom, getting students to talk to each other, and then of course, converting or replicating those group work activities that we were hosting in our classes face-to-face before. So how might we do that through this Canvas environment? Canvas's answer to that is to create discussion forums. So discussion forums on Canvas are the function that allows students to talk all together, even if they're not talking at the same time, right? So it's like this conversation that just keeps going, where they're engaging with each other, but they don't have to be online at the same time to do it. Discussion forums are flexible. Like many other functions in Canvas, they can hold anything you want. You could post a question and have students, respond to each other. You could upload a reading, ask them to read it, and give back some thoughts of their own, and then you know, expand on thoughts that other people do. You could use it as a place where students upload an assignment from your class that they're working on, and then they can give one another feedback. You could have them watch a video and then talk about it. There's so many things that you can do with the discussion forum. Discussion forums can be both graded and ungraded. So you can create a graded discussion forum where students respond, or a graded discussion where students reflect upon their process. Some of the most powerful conversations I've seen happen in an online environment are not me asking students to demonstrate their knowledge about a learning concept, but places where they're invited to talk about the experience of being a learner with that content, right? So instead of saying, you know, what are the top 5 things that happen when you bake a cake? We're asking, what were the moves you made to learn how to bake a cake? How'd that go for you, right? Those metacognitive questions make really rich discussions online. And students will often demonstrate an engagement and a vulnerability that is really tremendous. And that's that great moment of coming alongside, helping them to feel like they're capable, and doing all of that through a discussion forum. You can make ungraded discussions where students can post questions weekly, or, you know, however you move through your modules, you could just have an ungraded discussion forum. What questions do you have about this content? And it's like they raise their hands. It's like raising their hands in class, right? They can answer each other and then you can answer them there. Instead of answering 35 questions by email, you can centralize those questions. Okay.
Nick, can I add one idea?
Totally.
So when I do discussions with students, the other thing that I learned in my advanced Canvas training through my college was, if it is going to be a graded discussion, a little extra you could do, except for putting the grade or the point value, is in the content box where you're creating the prompt for that discussion, actually tell them what it's worth. This discussion will be worth 10 points.
Yep.
So it's in the content prompt section and not just at the end, which they're not looking at sometimes.
Right. Because they might think that an online discussion forum is like an add-on, and you might think it's the most important thing they're going to do that week, right?
Exactly.
So in the same way as in your face-to-face classes, you would do something to help clarify to them that engaging in dialogue about this topic is valued so much that it contributes to your grade. Being explicit about that in the instructions can be really, really, really helpful. Let's take a look at how you would build that discussion to make that comment and make that discussion a bit more relevant and tangible for you. So let's go
Nick,
back to our, oh, go ahead.
I have someone raising his hand. Kenny, did you want to ask something right now?
I just wanted to ask if this is going to be recorded.
It
Yes.
is. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I can go back to it later. Okay. Great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Thank
And
you.
this is a great moment to also mention that in addition to that, we have these times every day that are, Devin, what is our title for them now? Our thought partner sessions are, oh, you're muted.
Let me unmute. They are coaching sessions.
Okay.
So anytime that you need like a virtual coach, or if you want to refresh some of the stuff that you've learned on these larger sessions with us today, we have those available in the afternoon.
Oh, great. All right.
They're like colleague to colleague office hours working. Like imagine us as being in the office next door that we no longer live in the hallway of, where you can just knock on the door and be like, do you know how to do this thing? Or I got this far, but I couldn't get any farther.
Okay, so that will be a drop-in.
Correct. Yeah.
And that is going to be posted this afternoon.
Yes. Well, make sure that you get the link. It's on our Wayfinding online workshop series.
All right. Thank
And
you.
before this session's over, we'll show you where to find
Thank you so much.
that too. You
Thank
bet. You bet. That is how we all get here. That is how we all get here. So I want to quickly show you how to add a discussion forum and then turn us over to questions. And so remember that we're back here in this module that we built. Right now, this module, this container contains an interactive page of stuff for students to do, but we also want to add a discussion forum to it. So we're going to go to the same place where we added a page, which is that plus sign on the right. And we're going to go to that same place where we dropped down and we chose page, but this time we're going to choose discussion. And then we have existing discussions. Maybe you want to link this in another spot, or you can make a new discussion. Let's make a new discussion that says Module A reading discussion. Okay. And then I'm going to come down to the blue and say add item. Just like when I built the page, now I have an item but has nothing in it, right? So in order to engage with it, I need to come underneath the title of that item and click on it. And that's when Canvas is going to give me that design space to go back in and add more details. I'm going to choose edit on the right. And that's when I'm going to be able to add all the stuff that we've been talking about. So this is where, per Devin's recommendation, I could list whatever my question is, my discussion prompt here. Da, 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 da. I could add how many words. Whoa, that's in caps. Sorry. I could have my word count if that's important to me, both for my initial post and if I want them to respond to each other, I could put a word count for each response post. The more clear you can be about the type of interaction you want them to do, you want your students to do, the more successful this will go, right? So I have a few sentences where I say like, a great initial post adds new thinking and new ideas and also shows that you read the assignment. And then I give an example, and then I say a great response post continues a conversation, right? You ask a question, or you connect to a personal experience, or. But I'm really explicit about saying like, students, here's the move that you need to make in order to show your learning through this discussion forum. And they seem to really appreciate those instructions. This is the place where, as Devin suggested, you could say this discussion is worth 30 points, and just make that right up front. So once you've added your information here, just like on a content page, you could link to a website, right? You could add some sort of media that you want them to engage with. You can upload a reading right here, right? Attach something. Here's your choose file to do that. Okay. And then you have a couple decisions to make about building this discussion forum. I highly encourage you to choose under the options allow threaded replies, because that nests the conversation and the responses to each other. And then if you want it to be graded, you choose the graded option, and Canvas will build that out a little bit more and say, okay, tell me more about what you want. Okay, how many points do you want it to be worth? It gives you other options. I would suggest, in that spirit of keeping things simple, that you do not turn it into a group discussion. Imagine that your class is the group. If there's 30 people in your class, that's your group. Don't subdivide those folks at this point. That's a future semester when you have more time on your hands. I would also suggest that you display your grade as points. If you move into putting them into percentage or some other method, it can be more complex to take on with the gradebook. In the spirit of this being Canvas 101, let's live with things in points. And then this is where I can put in that due date down under assign, okay? Where I can choose when it's due, and then it will show up for my students as an assignment that they need to do. Again, I can hit save. And so now I can see the work that I've done. If I want to get back to seeing that on my front page, I can go to home. And again, in this case, I will see, where did it go? Huh. Oh, I guess it's right there. I just can't read. Sorry, it's right in front of me. So here's my container. Here's my module. Here's my page that's published. Here's the discussion forum I just built that is not published until I click on the box. And now it's published. And this date that locks people out continues to move to the bottom of that module. So no matter what I build in here, folks can't access it until this date that I put on there. So that's really what I wanted to show you at this point. I want to move this into a place where I can answer your questions. What can we talk more about? What questions can I clarify for you?
Okay, so I can go into some of the ones that I have captured so far, and just some things that other people have already answered. So the one comment or question was, you also have to publish your class, question mark. They can't see it if the class is not published.
Correct. Let me show you where that is.
Yeah, thank you.
Over here on the right, Okay, and I've left mine unpublished so that you could see what that looks like, right? Over here, this is my class. You'll notice that the course status is that it is unpublished right now. So I could do all of this beautiful stuff. I could publish all of this content in here. But if I do not choose publish, nobody sees anything. The best way to know whether or not it is published is this bar over here on the right. Because Canvas will give you the opportunity to see what this looks like from a student through this button on the right called Student View. Somebody decided that this was the way they wanted to work it. You can see what the class would look like from the view of a student, even when it is unpublished. And that's a bit problematic, right? Because you could go into the student view to see what your course looks like and think that it's published when it isn't. So great shout out to remember, choose the publish button to make sure that folks can see your course.
The other comments and questions. So it asks, will our courses be made public, or are they only accessible to our students? I ask because I can see other professors' courses under apps.
I don't know about the apps. What I do know is you get to choose whether or not you want your, like, nobody can see my courses except my students, right? Unless I do one of two things, okay? So if I export my course to something called Canvas Commons, I'm making a decision for my course content to be visible to other Canvas users in other spaces, which right now might be really beneficial to the collective, right? You can also visit the Commons and import content, but it's not your students' information and it's not your students' moves. It's simply what you've built in your course. And that's a personal decision on whether or not you want to make that public. Canvas defaults to saying nobody can see your Canvas course except your students. The exception to that is if you add someone in another role, and this isn't a student, but this might be a fellow colleague at your campus or your dean or something like that, you can add a person to your course and then decide what role you want them in, but it's not students. Right? It's other folks in other roles on your campus. And again, they're only added by invitation to your class.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that's helpful. Yeah. So I kind of answered it the same way, like only if you publish your course to Canvas Commons and you share that deliberately with the community, that's when your course will be seen by other professors or other people in the world.
Now, you can share between your own classes.
Right.
So you can use down here under settings, you can go into settings and there's a choice that you can make to import from another class. So if you build something in one of your classes and you're like, that's a great thing, I want that in my other class, you can share with yourself very easily.
Awesome. Thank you. The other question, which I think this was, you showed this, is can you put pictures in pages, right? So
you can.
Go ahead.
Let me show you what that looks like and just give a word of caution with that, or a word of a lot of thought with that, okay? So images are one of those places where accessibility becomes a real consideration, right? So for a lot of reasons, I would say add photos if photos means diagrams, means essential knowledge components for your class. And then when you add them, make sure that you're prepared to add some alternative text. And if you're like, whoa, I don't know how to do that, but I know I need to, that's a great moment to connect with us in one of our coaching sessions so we can walk you through that more in depth, right? Canvas does give you this option, right? I'm back in my page now. And I'm in that place where I can add content, I can edit what's here, and I could come over to embedding an image. And especially if, say, I'm a physiology professor, I might need an image of the muscles of the body or something like that so that students can engage with that content. In those situations, I'm going to want to embed alternative text so that a screen reader can read that information, right, alongside. For this reason, and also because the more fancy your course gets, the more your students have to know how to navigate it. Given this particular moment in time, I would say simple is good. They don't care that it's not pretty. They really don't. In general, I do not add images to my courses ever, and I teach online every semester. And I have all the time in the world to do it. And I just choose not to do it because it's one more thing they have to try and make sense of. And it's one more thing for me to spend time thinking about, that like they're not losing sleep at the fact that it's all blue and white and doesn't have a lot.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so that's super helpful. In the spirit of time,
Yep.
We've got 3 minutes, so I just wanted to move us along. We've got a great just words of the wise for people. So for accessibility, we had someone comment, it's best if the link to a thing, like a web link to a thing, is the title of the video,
Yes.
rather than the word link.
Yes.
So if you can instead write link, you can just say, you know, the title of the video is X.
Yep.
Click here on
That's right.
that.
That's right.
That was really great. And then a question, I think this will be our last, well, we got 2 I want to get to. If I include PowerPoint, so if someone includes a PowerPoint, does it come through as the presentation or separate slides?
It comes through as the presentation.
Okay.
You could choose to save that PowerPoint as a PDF if you don't want folks to be able to edit it in some way.
Edit it. Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It will come through as a thing where they literally can click. Yep.
Yeah. So typically what I do is I actually save it as a PDF.
Mhm.
I never throw up an editable PowerPoint or an editable Word doc unless I want the students to collaborate on the creation of something, which I do a lot. But for PowerPoints or any content that you want your students to absorb and learn, I always save things to a PDF. And actually it's better because it makes it smaller. And then that way, if a student is having, you know, tech issues, usually PDFs are much more reliable to open than Microsoft Office products if you're using a Mac like I do and things always crash.
Right.
The last thing I want to bring up is the last question here, which I think was great. What is the difference between the basic Zoom account that we all currently have and the Confer Zoom in Canvas?
Mm-hmm. So I believe they are one in this, it's a bridge, right, Devin? That the Confer Zoom, so the link down, you know, on the left-hand side that is Confer Zoom is literally just a way in which Zoom already lives in your Canvas shell so that you don't have to go to Zoom on the World Wide Web and then pull it in. Like it's a digital bridge that's been built so that you can go from your Canvas course to Zoom, and more importantly, so your students can go from their Canvas course right to Zoom without having to have a separate external link added.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you all so much. Before we end, I'm going to put in the link to our new online engagement work. So you're going to see all of the sessions we have this week, the coaching sessions that we mentioned later. I have the landscapers decided to come right now, so I hope you can still hear me. But I'm going to put that link in the chat so you can go ahead and click on all of our virtual workshops. And Nick, is there anything else?
Actually on the screen while Devin adds those on the chat.
Oh,
you can see them on the screen.
Thank you. Awesome. Beautiful.
We really appreciate you taking this time to be with us, for adding to our dialogue, for giving so many great and meaty and wonderful questions. Please follow up with us. We're going to follow up with you, whether it's through those coaching sessions, or if you have an individual question, please reach out. That's how we make sure that we're getting you what you need, and we're developing frequently asked question sites as well to make sure that we can respond.
Yeah. Awesome, everyone. Thank you so much. Go get some lunch and stretch your bodies.
Sounds
Thank you,
wonderful.
Nick.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, y'all.
Bye, everybody.